Hey, John.
Hey, Eric. Welcome to Mostly Security. Episode, what is this? 44, yeah?
The 44.
Okay. All right. I can count.
It's a good number.
Two more than 42.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, this week.
yeah, what happened this week?
So, I have a short story about dealing with your local ISP.
Oh,
So, my ISP is Frontier. I have Fios. And it's. Actually, I am very, very pleased with how well it functions. I'm paying for 100 megabit up and down. So, I have, pretty good internet speeds to do just about whatever I want.
you do.
And one of the things that I do, because I'm me, is I actually have a web page that tracks the current speed, and I keep a historical record of how fast I run speed test every hour or half hour or so, and report that up to a website so I can build charts and track history, et cetera, et cetera. And, they sell you 100 megabit up and down, but you don't actually get 100 megabit up and down. You get something. And for a year or so, I've been averaging 90 megabits down. Then all of a sudden in August, there's a very nice drop line to averaging about 75 megabits down. Download. Not a slow decline or degrade in service, because it's
A step function.
it's a very visible step in the bar chart or in the line chart there. And I just have not got around to calling them because I hate dealing with tech support because, anyways, it's still plenty fast, and so it's hard. Well,
They're reading from their
anyways.
script. Yep, you gotta...
Yeah, so I started a text chat this morning and said, hey, I have data that you have deliberately lowered my speeds. Can I fix it? And completely ignoring and I gave them a link to my website that has the data so they can go look at the chart. There, of course, they completely ignore the question and say, well, we need to go reboot your router. No, we don't. Well, we need to have you plug that directly into a PC and run the speed test to the website I call you because we don't trust whatever site you're going to. I'm going to the exact same site you go to already, and so after it's text chat, so it's IM chat, so I'm not really paying attention that close while I'm doing other things. And finally loops around to, well, let me send some updates. We noticed something is out of date. Of course it's out of date. Let me send some updates. So they send some updates to my ONT out on the side of the house, apparently, and I looked this evening and saw that now I'm averaging up in the 83, 84 range. So still not up to the 90s where I was before, but magically they didn't do anything and I'm getting better speeds again. So anyways, whatever.
I would feel sympathy for you if I wasn't sitting at... Hold on. Let me look right now. Because I have my Eero, so it tells me
7?
No, 14 down, 5 up, which is not
that's
bad.
an improvement.
That is like essentially exactly what I'm paying for. I'm paying for 15. So yeah, I can't complain, but I will have a hard time mustering a sufficient quantity of sympathy for you at 75. Not to mention our friends that get 500 or 750 and like to send me screenshots of their I got gigabit. Anyway, speaking of text chat though, I had a great text chat experience this weekend. Actually, my parents were in town and my father had bought, kind of at my advice, I guess, although I didn't have firsthand experience with it, but an Amplify router and a teleport, because they're snowbirds and they're on the road a lot, and so they have a house down in Arizona where they have TV, and I thought that something like the Amplify teleport would work really well for them when they're on the road. They can plug in someplace and then he can essentially get onto his home network and watch TV or whatever they want to do.
Right.
And we sat down Saturday or Sunday night and tried to set it up, and it didn't, of course, work and right away. And they had a great. This is a Ubiquiti, makes the Amplify. It's kind of their consumer level mesh networking. And it didn't work. I couldn't figure it out, obviously. So they had a great text chat in the app itself. And as it turns out, I had to apply a firmware update before I could customize the port. And then my network here is, crazy. So a couple of port forwards later, and it worked here, which was pretty cool. He was able to set up a hotspot on his phone, and then we connected the teleport to his phone network, and then took another phone, and connected it to the teleport, and then that phone, essentially was tunneling, but back onto my home network, which is pretty cool. So you can check out the Amplify teleport if you're at all interested, or maybe I should have said at the beginning what it actually is, but it's basically you have a Amplify base station at your home as your router, and you can have a whole mesh network too. They've got these little antennas that you put elsewhere, but then you can buy the teleport, which is a little, I think, $100 device. I don't know how much it is separately. And you carry that with you. So in a hotel room or something like that, you plug it in, and then it generates a local Wi-Fi network, which you connect to. And in connecting to the local Wi-Fi network, it asks you in the Capture Portal page, it shows you a list of other network connections locally it can see. So like the hotel network, you connect it to the hotel network, and then all of your devices. Once it connects to the hotel network, the teleport itself, it creates a VPN back to your home network, and it's paired to the device itself. So security seems to be pretty decent from everything I've read. And now essentially any of your local devices, your tablet or phones that you connect to the teleport, are effectively on your home network via essentially a VPN tunnel. It's totally a cool little device. I think it's kind of slick, and I was a little jealous.
So what was the chat part of this?
Well, the chat part was in the app itself. They had a chat with a representative essentially, and I think, but the person on the other end was pretty helpful, and I had to ask a couple questions. She didn't totally run me through the script. I mean, it was, I think, pretty. I have other Ubiquiti equipment out at the edge of my network. So anyway, the main thing she did was she confirmed that I did need to do a firmware update and told me where to go to get the port set, which were the two things that it wasn't obvious, because the port, for example, wasn't in the app. You had to connect to the web page on the router to get the additional settings. So it wasn't the push, one push, send it to your grandma. She can set it up fine. Unfortunately, but we'll see. I think having done it, I can walk my dad through setting it up down at his place if need be.
Nice.
Yeah, that was fun. All right. Well, we should get into the show here. How about
follow up?
How about some follow up?
Follow up is really not follow up, because it's mostly just sitting and watching the Bloomberg story and the if I'm allowed to quote Patrick Gray, A Risky Business, the dumpster fire that is the Bloomberg report. I think the short answer to that one is, if you are interested at all in the Bloomberg story and some great follow-up reporting, listen to the Risky Business podcast. He did a couple special episodes and has followed up with a lot of great information from even the hardware security expert in the original story, because now there's a second story out that kind of Bloomberg's doubling down on it. And the original hardware security expert, Patrick reads the email that he sent Bloomberg from this expert saying, these are all theoretical. I haven't seen anything. It was very much not what the story portrayed. And, he was uncomfortable with how his position in the story seemed to be portrayed, to the point where he was saying, I explained numerous hypothetical scenarios. They all seem to appear in the story as I described them as hypotheticals, but then they're backed up by 17 unnamed sources.
Right. Well, I actually listened again to what we talked about last week, and I was pretty happy with how cagey I think we were, because it was fresh hot off the presses. We were like, allegedly this, allegedly that, and then I went after next day after we recorded that, I listened to the first Risky Business podcast where he had thought that he had had some confirmation of there. I then saw the next couple days that his supposed source had walked that back, and I think Patrick has been kind of almost on a tear to exonerate or redeem himself, which is good. I haven't had a chance to listen to that next episode. I will hopefully this week. But
there's a couple more episodes. He's got a couple special episodes, and then his regular weekly episode, they dig into it again. So
yeah, okay, more time than I have at the moment. We'll see. But yeah, I'm viewing that with a great amount of skepticism that it was a real thing. I do still think that, I guess the theoretical attacks that were outlined are valid theories, valid possibilities, potential issues that we should make sure of.
A hardware supply chain attack is clearly a possibility, and something that you need to watch out for if that's part of your business. With the complexity of these systems and the number of players that have their fingers on various parts of the boards before they get to their final assembly. It's not some guy in a garage building the entire thing. It's hundreds of components from hundreds of companies. So
right.
Yeah, you find the weakest link. That's definitely a possibility, but in this case, it does appear a little bit overblown.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll have to maybe progress on to kettle corn and get a little more structure to our popcorn eating.
Yeah.
So okay, well, yep. Kind of keep track.
Yeah, and then there was yet another follow-on story. Bloomberg now has 3 different stories on this. They're just doubling down and tripling down. And the next security expert that apparently talks about evidence of hacked hardware in one of the U.S. telecoms. Every U.S. telecom of any name brand has come out and said it's not us. And then the expert has also disagreed with how Bloomberg has positioned his research. So
sensationalism.
It's, maybe it's the reporters, maybe it's the 17 unnamed, unsourced, or unknown sources. Whatever it is, there's, as Patrick said, there's a dumpster fire somewhere. Just not sure who's in the fire.
Yeah.
Anyways.
All right, we'll keep keep
watching that one. If anything, it is bringing the possibility of supply chain hardware type attacks to some visibility, which if you want to grab a silver lining somewhere, I think that's a good one.
Oh yeah, I think for sure. Just the real question is whether there's anything that can be determined. I have a critical idea about that, though. We should track the supply chain with a blockchain.
Oh, wait, you're serious.
I'm sorry.
It was funny.
Yeah.
Just today, I was talking to a guy who's in real estate and finance, and he was telling me how they're seriously looking at blockchain for creating securities tokens to share private blockchain. So they're actually looking at it for ways to do actual use cases. We had this kind of, riding in the car from one place to another, short discussion on, are you sure? And anyways, blockchain ain't going anywhere.
No. There's real things
we'll
there,
see.
but I'm just saying, tracking componentry. Oh well. Anyway,
Yeah,
so
right.
well, how about we dive into the first topic here?
Go for it.
All right. Yeah, this is actually the topic that I had meant to talk about last week, but given the Bloomberg thing, which was literally hot off the presses, that seemed more pressing and interesting. But this is the Facebook data breach that happened, published on September 28th. So it's been almost 2 weeks now at this point. But this was an issue where they had security tokens exposed that affected, it says almost 50 million accounts. And I thought this was particularly interesting. I mean, Facebook, we've piled on Facebook a number of times. We'll maybe pile on extra lots tonight. But this is something that I think is, particularly interesting because it was a complicated set of issues that led to the exposure, and then there were a number of sort of knock-on effects of the vulnerability, and then it's in an environment where we are not quite sure what's going to happen. So you kind of have a real convolution of different issues here. But so first of all, this was an exposure of authentication tokens, and essentially this is really quite tricky. So a token is what's used when you authenticate to a website. It'll generate what looks like a long series of random gobbledygook and give that to you as essentially a pass. It's like a hall pass that you then your browser, when you're connecting with your browser presents to the web page and says, "Hey, this is me. I have this token. See." And inside that gobbledygook, I mean, depending on what kind of token it is, you can actually look inside and there'll be sometimes data, like if it's a JWT token or something like that.
Right.
And it's signed generally by something that the server side can trust, and so it knows it hasn't been tampered with, and it will generally have an expiration of some value. So that might be minutes, hours, days, a month, or longer. It sort of depends on the service you're logging into. But the tricky thing with this vulnerability was essentially this was there was a feature, and I'm sure you're very well familiar with this with your lack of a Facebook account. There's a feature that lets you view as somebody else's account. So if you want to see what your own account looks like if you were somebody else, or
yeah, I think LinkedIn has that feature as well. I think a number of those types of things, what does it look like to the outside world, so you can kind of see,
right.
So you can look, I use it to look at it and then go, oh, I don't want,
that
this
data
part
exactly.
public,
Exactly. But so the thing is that you can basically view anyone's account. But there was a bug. This is the first bug that let you, when you're on the view as page, post a video. And the view as is supposed to be essentially a read-only view. You're only supposed to see, be able to read it, but you're not supposed to post update or post, add a picture or post a video. But the first bug was that you were able to post a video. And then the second bug was that in the video uploader, instead of generating an access token for you, the person who is viewing the page. So if I'm viewing your page, I'm logged in as me, but I'm uploading the video to the view as, Eric Wheeler page. And instead of generating an access token for me, the logged in user, it generates a token for you, the page you're viewing. And so, and then that when that uploader is there, I'm trying to read this page here that we'll link here. So, I'm sorry. So the second bug was that the video uploader generates an access token that has the permissions of the Facebook mobile app, not evidently the Facebook desktop. But then the third bug is where it generates the access token for not the viewer, but the user that you're looking up. And so at that point in time, if you look in the HTML of the browser, you go to DevTools or View Source, or look at the headers being exchanged, you can see the token that's being sent, and you can then take that token and impersonate the user that you were doing a view as for. So kind of a complicated set of defects that allowed this to happen. But, effectively, what Facebook did was I'm not sure how they came to the 50 million for the first number, but because it also says that they took a precautionary step of resetting access tokens for another 40 million. They reset the access tokens for another 40 million accounts that were subject to a view as lookup in the last year. So somehow they know that 50 million accounts were affected in the first place, and then 40 million on top of that may have been affected. So they didn't say in here how they know that the first 50 million were done, but maybe somebody was hitting and scraping.
They would just have telemetry of what features are being used, and they could probably just look up how often is my view as feature being used, and if they slurp everything, they could probably even know who used the view as feature.
Right.
Or who used the view as feature, or who was someone viewing using that feature. Like both halves of that conversation.
Right.
Like I could do view as Mark Zuckerberg's profile.
Right.
And that probably would trigger some telemetry event in their back end system they could look up.
Right. So this was another big disclosure. But then I thought that there was a Verge article that we'll also post here in the notes, but that I thought had at least two interesting points that kind of went beyond what Facebook said about this in particular. And the first point that I thought was particularly important was if you have a token for a user, it's not clear whether third-party services that use the Facebook Connect, which is how you can leverage Facebook logins to, instead of generating users yourself or having an identity provider yourself. You've probably seen this around on the web where, you log in with your Facebook account and they list in particular Spotify, Airbnb, and Tinder as large internet services that rely on Facebook logins. But it's at least a possibility that anyone who had full access to a user's account would have been able to log into those services as well. But that's a implication of having a large centralized identity provider when there is a vulnerability or a a hack of that identity provider, the splash damage, if
Right.
you will, could be significantly
I
larger.
I see a lot, yeah, of those, like, use your Twitter account to log in, use your Gmail account to log in, use your Facebook account to log in. And if at all humanly possible, I don't like doing that. That's why I have a password manager. I create a separate user, and that's the only account that gets in trouble if something like this were to happen.
Right. So the second interesting sort of knock-on effect of this that it is more of a popcorn situation again. I mean, I think we'll just have to wait and see how it played out. Was one of the reasons that Facebook disclosed it before they had even done their, finished doing their root cause analysis is GDPR. So there's I think it's a 72-hour notification requirement that, if you learn of a breach, you have to notify affected customers within 72 hours. Oh, yeah. In fact, it says right here, while Facebook appears to have disclosed the breach within the 72 hours required by the GDPR, the EU privacy watchdog could still fine Facebook up to $1.63 billion. So
That does raise probably a good question to have some serious debate over. Would it be better, or is there something to say for maybe you have to disclose it immediately, but then it can be kind of behind closed doors for some period of time so you can gather enough data around what has happened for the breach. So not specifically Facebook. I'm just thinking in general for the GDPR stuff, their regulations. Are there or will there be scenarios which actually end up causing more harm because of the public disclosure requirement in such a short period of time than if someone would have had maybe a week to actually do some thorough analysis and figure things out, and either figure out that it's worse than they expected or not as bad as they thought.
yeah, I mean, I have to say I hadn't really thought about this before, but for sure, the reason why in most vulnerability disclosures there's a 90-day window is to give companies a chance to patch the vulnerability before
Right.
it's public disclosure. And while it may be possible in some services like Facebook that it's a centralized cloud service to make a change within 12 hours and have that rolled out worldwide, or you do still have to get to the root cause to know what to fix in the first place, and then you have to fix it, test it, roll it out. For a cloud platform, that's doable. A couple days is probably enough with sufficient urgency, and the potential of a $1.63 billion fine seems like that should put enough let's say fuel to the urgent fire that it's worth
Yeah.
doing something. But for let's say traditional software, and like I said, I'm not an expert on this, but even if I'll use us as an example. Even if we had a fix made, or had a vulnerability, made a fix, had the fix available, if your software has to be downloaded and deployed by customers in their own environments, traditional software, that's hard to do in 3 days, right? Especially if you have thousands or tens of thousands of pieces of software. I mean, think about Microsoft. If Microsoft has some form of a breach that requires not a change to their website or to their Azure services or something like that, but an actual change to desktop version. So maybe there's exclusions for that. I honestly I truly don't know, but I think it's a few and cloud specific large services that could really turn around and actually have a disclosed vulnerability actually fixed and deployed in 72 hours.
Right.
And if not, then you're basically giving people, think about this. If let's say they explain how you can impersonate other people getting tokens on Monday, and they're not going to have the fix till Friday. So now you've got 4 days where the entire world or anybody who's interested can go impersonate any Facebook user. Good luck with that, right?
Yep.
That's a terrible situation.
Well, I feel bad almost because the article one of the articles I was looking at today was piling on Facebook even more, but it's from today, so.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, I'm done with this one. That was my that was my article that waited through from last week, but big breach,
Right.
interesting breach, notable environment, and will be interesting to see what the consequences are.
Yeah, so I guess just really quickly, we'll link to an article on Facebook's WhatsApp Messenger.
Oh,
There was
I saw
discovery
that. Yep.
in the WhatsApp Messenger where all you had to do was answer an incoming video call, and whoever was calling you could take control of your app and your device, essentially, just by you answering a WhatsApp video call. Not a good several months.
Yeah.
Months, a year, a good year for Facebook, but not to be outdone, I guess. So I'll throw this one. Let's give Google a little grief here. Did you know Google Plus was still a thing?
I did not.
I think I had a Google Plus profile, whatever it was, several years ago with the Facebook killer. Well, apparently this is pre-GDPR, there was a breach in Google Plus API that basically exposed their 500,000 users. So think of how big Google is, and it was 500,000 users on Google Plus. Anyways, they exposed privacy
500,000. That's all.
on potentially 500,000 Google Plus users, and I guess that was the nail in the coffin for Google Plus. I hear apparently Google has finally pulled the plug on Google Plus. I didn't know it existed.
Yeah. I guess the nice thing about Google Plus is that it gave birth to the Google Photos.
I didn't know that. That's where Google Photos
I
was
read
derived
that
from?
I read that with
Huh.
in relation to this this article, or this not really a vulnerability, this breach. So sorry. I mean, if you're gonna complain about this breach, though, the important thing about this topic is that this is Google doing one thing with one side of its mouth and another thing with the other side. So the real issue here wasn't the fact that there was a breach, but it was that they covered it up for so long, because this happened 6 or more months ago, right? And
Yeah.
they actually decided, and it seems like some of the Wall Street Journal got a hold of some of the memos discussing the bug. Basically there was all the way up through legal recommendations whether or not they would be required to disclose this breach. Which the frustrating thing for many companies, I would say, is because Google's also responsible for Project Zero, right? Which is their whole goal is to find and disclose vulnerabilities in other software. And Project Zero has been really relatively, I don't know. I don't want to disparage too much, because I think that they're doing some really good work. But if you're one of the companies that's been targeted by Project Zero to find that Google's kind of treating itself differently and purposefully withholding disclosure, that's the real story here that I thought was really bad form.
Yeah.
Well, I have I have one other small topic that I think is at least worth calling out today. Again, I don't have much in the way of commentary on this, but if we're kind of piling on Facebook and Google, how about we cheer on Microsoft, which is
that's just a weird thing to
bizarre
say
for me.
I've been indoctrinated from very young age the evils of Microsoft, and I'm finding myself really liking Microsoft lately.
Why, it is. So the news is, again, hot off the presses today. So if we find out that Bloomberg, this is a Bloomberg, next week, we're going to be really sad. But this actually was a press release from Microsoft. So I'm going to guess that it is legit. But Microsoft is joining the Open Invention Network, and they are, which essentially is the effect of that is that they're committing to cross-license their patent portfolio with other Open Invention Network members. And Microsoft is bringing up to 60,000 patents to the table. So Microsoft is putting their money or their patents where their mouth is with regards to being committed to be the largest open source software development shop in the world. I think they already are, but one of the criticisms of Microsoft has been, you are doing all this good stuff, but you're also, suing Samsung for violating your patents. And I think one of the things I read was that they've made billions of dollars off of their Android
patent portfolio.
Android violating their patent portfolio. And so, but anyway, good for Microsoft. That's fantastic. So it's not quite clear to me that it's not like some of the titles were Microsoft open sources its entire patent portfolio. No, that's pretty clearly false. It's that by joining OIN, they're willing, and there's a very structured mechanism to also have other companies join OIN and cross-license their patent portfolios. Although, again, something I read today said that it's specific to the Linux kernel and system. So,
well, that's what OIN is, right? It's all about protecting Linux against the patent trolls, or at least that's the genesis of OIN.
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, I actually didn't know OIN before, or I might have run across them once or twice, but it wasn't major. But regardless, the fact that Microsoft is basically saying, "Hey, we're going to fight the trolls. We're going to make it possible to, cross license the patents within a very open structure." I think the implication here is that, if Samsung doesn't want to pay Microsoft $3 billion next year for its, Android patents or whatever, then Samsung would have to also join OIN, which would mean all of Samsung's patents that are in the Linux kernel or Linux system space would also have to be cross-licensed. So, I think I don't think it's a unqualified free for all. Now everybody gets to not violate Microsoft's patents, but I think from what I read, that I'm reading, this is a very transparent way for, so Google, Intel, Samsung, other companies with large patent portfolios can also join OIN, and it's kind of like a GPL 3.0.
Promise not to sue each other.
Well, it's
or agree not to sue each other.
You can use my code, but in exchange, you have to open source your code too, right? GPL is a viral license, and so I don't know. That's my analogy for this, which I thought was very cool. I hope that that works out.
Yeah.
All right, so maybe we had a few more comments on that than I expected. I thought it was just going to be, hey, this is a really cool thing. All right, how about you tell me something fun? We're running long.
All right, so my something fun this week, I went through several and then just kind of settled on a Netflix show that I got hooked on. And I generally love documentaries. I don't really end up liking a lot of sitcoms. You know, they're even the very popular ones like Seinfeld and stuff from, you know, my 20s or my youth. I didn't have to see these sitcoms. And this is not one that I have to see, but it's a sitcom and I just thought it was kind of fun. It's called The Good Place. Apparently it's still on TV. Who knew there's actually cable TV still, or television channels. I think it's on NBC. But it's on Netflix, the seasons 1 and 2. And the premise of the show is these characters die and go up to the good place where they start to discover things. And the twist to this story is that the person who dies and ends up in the good place wasn't really a good person on Earth, and it's their kind of sitcom-y type bits of trying to fit in. Ted Danson, you know, is the proprietor of this good place.
He's
and
God?
You know, kind of the guy. No, I can't say too much more, or I will ruin it for people.
All right. So this isn't like
But,
what was that show from the 80s? Stairway to Heaven?
Yeah, no. This is very much tongue in cheek, and it's funny because, well, they can't swear.
Oh,
but they can say words that sound similar, and it's, I don't know. It hit me in my funny bone. I'll just put it that way. I found it kind of humorous, to pun on the bone there, the funny bone there. But anyways, there's 2 seasons on Netflix, and apparently it's still running. So I imagine the 3rd season will show up on Netflix whenever NBC gets done with whatever the current season is. But anyways, it's fun. It's Kristen Bell and Ted Danson are the stars of the show, and very lighthearted, but funny. I'm enjoying that one.
all right.
Anyways, that's my something fun this week.
I'll try and watch an episode or 2. Okay, so I have 2 fun things, but one's kind of like a technical fun thing that I thought was just cool, and then the other's just kind of like that. So I'll do the technical thing, which is actually a paper. You know, I didn't actually look. Was it a grad paper, I think? But we'll put in the archive.org link in the show notes. But this is a paper for essentially compiler optimization technology. So this is a project. I assume it's a grad project, but let me see. Okay. Oh, so Raman is from Google, and 2 other names, at least, from University of Rochester. The intent of this is we have very large applications in many cases these days. And so, for example, they used MySQL and Firefox as 2 examples of large pieces of software that have, for example, let's see, they said in MySQL they went from 900,000 lines of code in 2008 to 2.1 million in 2017, and Firefox went from 2.4 million in 2004 to 7 million in 2017. Large amounts of code, and essentially this is how to better lay out the structure of an executable to maximize cache hits. So one of the main reasons why the CPU can stall is waiting for data to execute in the instruction cache. So effectively, the cool thing about this is, and you can read the paper if you want. I to be honest, I didn't read the whole paper. I read the intro and I read the summary. But the net of this is that they got a 10% speed up by reorganizing the layout of the code blocks in executable. 10% speed up, which is at least in Intel land, where the Intel CPUs are not at, let's say, the steep part of the curve, really significant. I thought that was really cool. That's it. Okay, that's my something. That's my like geeky something cool. And then my since we are running long, I'll try and make the last. So the my second one is kind of more like you in terms of something media, but I've been falling behind on my podcasts for the last 2 weeks because I've been listening to some books on Audible called The Broken Earth. This is a series. It says it's a trilogy, which I'm really glad about because I'm in book 3 and I really want them to. It was the sort of thing
Wrap
where
it up.
Well, it's not that I want it to be over, but I am very much enjoying the story. And when I finished book 1, I was like, okay, give me book 2 now. Not part way, not waiting until tomorrow. I want book 2 now. And I'm in book 3 now, so I haven't finished the series yet. But it's called the Broken Earth trilogy. It is very, very enjoyable. I think it's very good, and I'm particularly enjoying listening to it on Audible because the voice actress or actor, I guess, is just a very, very good very good reader. So that's my something fun. The Broken Earth.
Cool.
And in another few hours of listening, once I finish book 3, then maybe I'll catch up on my podcast listening. But check it out.
Awesome. Have a good night, John.
Have a good night, Eric. See you later.
Bye.